Good evening. The meeting of the Tomball ISD Board of Trustees is called to order at 5:30 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, December 10th, 2024, in the John P. Neubauer Administration Building, Cherry Street, Tomball, Texas. For the record, a quorum of the board is present. All trustees are in attendance tonight. The meeting is being recorded in accordance with Government Code Section 551.128. We would like to welcome those in attendance tonight and those viewing the online recording. The Board of Trustees' role is to set goals, review reports, approve a budget, contracts, and personnel appointments, and establish policies for this district. It's the superintendent's role and responsibility to handle the day-to-day operations of the district. Policies and procedures are in place to address any concerns. This is a business meeting of the Board of Trustees that is open to the public. However, it is not a meeting of the public. Public participation is limited to designated times during this meeting for citizen comment for those that have registered to speak in accordance with board procedures. We ask for your cooperation, ensuring that the meeting runs in an orderly manner. Thank you. Board members have received items related to tonight's agenda and have had the opportunity in last night's meeting, the workshop meeting, to ask questions of the superintendent relating to these agenda items. Items on the agenda for tonight's meeting may not be handled in the order on the agenda. Additionally, if the board determines at any point during the meeting that it needs to convene in an executive session, the board will do so in accordance with sections 551.01 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code. So this evening we will have opening remarks by Ms. Salem. We will have the pledge by Mr. McStravick, and we'll have the mission by Mr. Lewandowski. So turn it over to Ms. Salem for opening remarks.
Stand. Please stand. And for my opening comments, I'm going to say a prayer. If you'd like to participate, please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this season that we get to celebrate the birth of our Savior, and that you sent him as a babe, that he died on the cross for our sins, Lord, and we just help us to take the time to appreciate that and the true meaning of Christmas. And Lord, just thank you so much for our district and our family and our friends, and what a true precious gift they are. And Lord, just give us the wisdom that we need to make good and wise decisions for our students, our staffs, and our families in Tomball. In Jesus' name.
Please join me in a pledge to the Pledge of Allegiance, and followed by the pledge to the Texas flag. I will remind you, there is no comma between one nation under God. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Mission statement of Tomball ISD. Tomball ISD empower students to become impactful, contributing citizens by providing innovative, individually rigorous, and personally valuable educational experiences while partnering with the community.
Thank you all very much. This evening, we have no public comments on agenda items, so we're going to get right into it. And so the first up is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion regarding that consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lewandowski, seconded by Mr. McStravick. Do any board members have any additional questions of the superintendent regarding any of the items on the consent agenda before I open up the floor for discussion? Hearing none, is there any discussion by the board?
I'd like to move item I to consider, the educational philosophy policy.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, hearing no second, that item will remain on the consent agenda. Back to the motion that has been made and the second to approve the consent agenda. I'd now like to take a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. The vote is 6 approve, 1 not approve. So the motion carries with a vote of 6-1. Considered agenda. We'll now proceed with the considered agenda. Please be advised that the agenda review has limited discussions of item F, H, and K to 3 minutes per board member in accordance with the board operating procedures. We may not need that, but just be aware of that. I will monitor the time limit for the discussion for those individual items when we take them up for consideration. Item A, appoint 2 members of the Tomball ISD board to serve on the audit committee. And so that one, I will actually appoint the committee members from the chair. And so we'll begin with the appointment of the specific board members for membership on the committees. So first up is the audit committee. So as the board president, I would like to appoint Jennifer Kratke and Coco White to the audit committee. Are there any objections to these appointments? Hearing none, the appointments are accepted by acclamation. Okay, got it. So next one is appoint 2 members of the Tomball ISD board to serve on the policy committee. So as board president, I would like to appoint John McStravick and Mark Lewandowski to the policy committee. Are there any objections to these appointments? Okay, hearing none, the appointments are accepted by acclamation. Next up is the budget committee. As board president, I would like to appoint Amanda Bass and John McStravick to the budget committee. Are there any objections to these appointments? Hearing none, the appointments are accepted by acclamation. Last is the advocacy committee. As the board president, I would like to appoint Tina Salem and Mark Lewandowski to the advocacy committee. Are there any objections to these appointments? Okay, hearing none, the appointments are accepted by acclamation. Okay, moving forward to, where are we? We're on item E, item Echo. Okay, the motion is to approve the 2025 local calendar for purposes of the Texas Public Information Act. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. McStravick, seconded by Ms. Salem. Do any board members have any additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open the floor for discussion by the board?
Martha, can you just explain a little bit what this is and why we have to,
Yes, ma'am, thank you. This is an annual requirement that we have a local calendar every year for the purposes of the Texas Public Information Act regarding any requests that come in to the district regarding any public record information that's asked for.
thanks.
Because we have so many days to respond, right?
Correct. And so we have to have a calendar in which we work from. We have an incredible team that works through that very carefully.
Okay, if no other questions for the superintendent, are there other questions? No? Okay. Is there any discussion by the board for the board? Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand to signify. Okay, that's, everybody raised their hand, so that's, that item passes unanimously 7-0. Item F, approve resolution casting Tomball ISD's vote to appoint directors to the Harris Central Appraisal District's Board of Directors. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. McStravick, seconded by Mr. Lewandowski. Do any board members have questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open up to the floor for the board's discussion? Okay. This item, we're limited to 3 minutes of discussion per board member. Is there any discussion?
I know Amanda brought up last night, Mr. Sullivan, and possibly splitting the vote.
Yeah,
what
so
did we
if I
decide
could
on that?
just clarify one thing. In the, I don't know, Janice, earlier today, you had sent out an update to the board book, and we have amended the resolution. At this point, the resolution reads, for a total of 65 votes, 35 would be cast for Martina Lamont Dixon, and 30 would be cast for Mike Sullivan. So that is the way the resolution is reading right now. Did that?
Yes,
yeah,
thank you for that
okay.
information.
Okay, any other discussion by anybody else? Okay. So we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor of the resolution as amended, with 35 votes for Ms. Dixon and 30 votes for Mr. Sullivan. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Item passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Appreciate your work on that, Holly. Item G, approve and ratify the superintendent's approval of addenda to the existing entry shield TIPS contract number 230202, service contract for the purchase and installation of impact-resistant film and the removal of window tint at a cost of $34,415.02, and approve additional expenses for window repair as needed, not to exceed $200,000, funded by the Safety and Facilities Enhancement Grant Cycle 1, SAFE. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Salem, seconded by Mr. White. Do any board members have any additional questions for the superintendent before I open it up to the floor for discussion? Okay. Is there any discussion by the board?
And this isn't something that we even have a choice on. This was, the state came down with.
Correct.
that
This
we
is
have
part
to-
of a requirement, but we are fortunate that our team has continued to look at safety grants, and we were successful with that. And so therefore, this is not coming at district expense, but it is a state mandated requirement. You are correct.
That they didn't fund.
There was some funding for safety, but it was millions short of the requirements. So the state did give us funding, so to be accurate, there has been some funding. But when you look at the requirements that we have been given, we are still millions of dollars short in what we need to do for unfunded mandates. You are correct.
Thank goodness for grants.
Thank goodness for grants. Although it still will fall to the taxpayers of Tomball, unfortunately. The reality is their requirements, and Tomball does what is required of us, particularly, of course, in safety and security, but in all areas as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's a very good one. I appreciate it.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Okay, hearing none. Any discussion by the board? Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item H, approve the release of $1,050,000 from committed funds to initiate Phase 1 of Exceeding Excellence 2030. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Mr. White, seconded by Mr. McStravick. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open it up for discussion?
Do you have any further number, like more detail on this memo as to the breakout of the $1 million?
We are working through that budget, but yes, that's the collected amount. But right now, we're still working with individual departments because it is district-wide for the determination of where the dollars will go for an overall 4 million strategic plan. So currently, what we have is what you have been provided.
And wasn't the strategic plan that we just finished 2025, correct? We
Correct.
finished it a year early.
20, we did complete it a little bit early. I don't know if it was a full year.
But it was
It wasn't
under
a full
budget
year,
too,
but
wasn't it?
2017 was a full year. That might be what you're thinking of. So the first district strategic plan was completed under budget and a year early. The second strategic plan was early, but not by a whole year, but was also a little bit under budget. And so the budget request this year is up to 4 million. It's been quite a process. Big thank you again to Dr. Schindewolf and the entire district. Every staff member in here has had their hand in a strategic plan. We believe very much that it is a roadmap of the future of our continued success and has led us this far, I believe.
And Martha, you just mentioned the $4 million, which was the amount the board's already approved
Correct.
to support the strategic plan, right?
Correct.
This item
This
is
is the first
just to
drawdown.
release some of the $4 million that have already been reserved for the strategic plan
Correct.
in order to,
To begin the projects that need to happen
Right.
to pre-plan and to start paying for whether it's a contract or some service or product that we need.
gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of the superintendent? Okay, open it up to the board for any discussion.
So I did go back and watch the videos. Again, I had watched it previously in September. I watched again today the workshop discussion and the regular board meeting in full. And I realized, Mr. Pratt, you were not there at those two meetings, so I didn't have the benefit of your views on any of this.
Okay. So we're talking about September? Talking about September? Based upon, so my answer to your question is based upon the good work that we did with, what was the first Vision
2017.
2017 and then 2020. We are making an investment, and if we look at the track record of the investments we've made in previous strategic plans, and then knowing what the elements of are for this current one, I am in support. And so while I wasn't present to vote, my vote would have been an affirmative. Yeah.
And I might add, you were at a number of the meetings, the
Yeah.
actual strategic planning meetings.
Yeah.
Along with the 20-plus parents and over possibly even 70 people when we count administration, business stakeholders,
Yeah,
other individuals that were a part of that process.
I think I attended the majority. I think I recall roughly 70 people present.
About.
Yeah.
If not more.
My understanding of the discussion was that as the funds were released, there was discussion about having more detail as they were released of what they for, and I feel like this memo is incredibly brief.
Okay.
And I would have liked to have a little bit more detail on, $1 million is a lot of money.
Okay.
And I share former trustee McLeod's concern that we're in a deficit budget year, and as he described it, a wartime economy. And I don't know if this is the right time to spend $1 million this year.
Mr. President, to the floor.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, just to kind of address your comments, Jennifer, the money's already been allocated. The board already approved $4 million towards the strategic plan. So it's not a question of whether we're going to spend that money or not. We've already allocated it. And I think if you go back and you listen to the comments that night, you'll see that was the comments that were made with Mr. McLeod as well. And so, knowing that we've already allocated it, the team has come up with $1 million that they want to spend out of that $4 million to move forward with implementing Exceeding Excellence 2030. You're correct. There's not a ton of specificity in here regarding each itemized item that would be purchased, but the concepts are there, which support the strategies, which support the goals, which support the beliefs, and the mission and vision. So I'm very comfortable with the amount of disclosure that we've seen thus far, and I have no problem supporting this motion.
But the 4 million doesn't mean that we're going to spend it all now. I mean, it's strategic plan 2030, so it
Correct.
be
It
based
will be
out
over a period. We will come back for a continued amount. And remember, and I know that you have not had the opportunity to be at many of our meetings from start to finish, but what we do is actually bring updates on the strategic plan. So in the future, since you will be here, you'll be able to see the updates, and that might make you feel a little more comfortable regarding what we have shown as success since 2017.
Okay, so we're in the board discussion phase. Ms. Crackey has spoken, Mr. McStravick, Ms. Salem. Any other board members contributing to the discussion? So a motion has been made and it's been seconded. All those in favor of this item, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion carries 6-1. Okay, moving to item I, approve the interlocal agreement between Tomball ISD and Harris County ESD 3 for medical standby coverage at events at the Tomball ISD Stadium and Event Center. Do I have a motion?
So, second.
Okay, I got Mr. Lewandowski with the motion and Ms. Salem with the second. I think I got that right. Okay. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open it up to the floor for discussion? Okay. Is there any discussion by the board for the board? Okay, I have a motion that's been made and it's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, let's go item J. Juliet, approve a $5,000 additional administrative fee amendment to the School Purchasing Alliance interlocal agreement using child nutrition funds. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion made by Mr. McStravick, a second by Mr. White. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open the floor for discussion?
So Martha, just to clarify again, I think we went over this, but just to clarify, this $5,000 is in respect of all participants of the co-op.
Correct.
And so it will be divided amongst the 30-plus participants.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's not $5,000 to just
For
us,
just TISD.
But the contract calls for a $5,000 amendment, and then
As
it's
a whole.
distributed across all of the participants, which
Yes,
is
sir. That is
30 plus.
accurate.
Okay, great. Thanks, that's it.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Okay, moving to, is there any discussion by the board for the board? Hearing none, a motion has been made and it's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Item K, approve the construction budget of $19,870,984 and an overall budget of $32 million for the construction of the fifth grade addition at Creekside Park Junior High using bond 2021 funds. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. White, seconded by Mr. Lewandowski. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open up the floor for discussion by the board for the board? Martha, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Could you, for the benefit of those watching as well as here at the table with us, just kind of recap the last 2 years in a very concise way of how we got here?
Absolutely.
And then along that journey, can you describe the cost of a full-blown
Sure.
intermediate build?
Okay. That is a tall request, but I'm going to do
I
my
have
best.
confidence that you can do it.
So, unfortunately, what we have seen is very unprecedented increases, as we have seen in every other aspect of our lives. The construction costs are not immune to that. And so we did pass a bond telling our community, these are all the things that we plan to do, prior to knowing really what was coming. It was like a tsunami and we had no idea. Nobody would have known the exorbitant increase in prices. And I'm very thankful to our partners, the architects, construction management, of course, Mr. Ross, Zach Bowles, the entire team that have worked with us to continue all of our projects to ensure that we can still provide as much as really what was on the bond and what our students truly need. And so keeping that in mind, I would like to, of course, we know we've had a lot of conversation about this intermediate school, ultimately landing on what the community in Creekside, a community that I live in, I have lived in for as long as I've been superintendent here, and before that actually, I think that after considering this school being at a separate site, listening to the community, working and reworking, visiting with partners, our firm, the firm Huckabee that worked with us very closely in trying to make this work. We're very grateful and very thankful to this board for their patience, the community for understanding. Ultimately, we were able to come to a determination that we could add a 5th grade wing, making us somewhat non-traditional. I will tell you that a team, Dr. Munoz, Dr. Schinderwolf, and I visited Brazosport ISD. They have a strong 5.8. We have visited with another district that also, there aren't many exemplars in the 5.8 world, but I can tell you we plan to be one as well. And so understanding that, this is somewhat different, but if we look at the costs of, let's just say, West Intermediate, for the newer board members that may or may not know this, understand we have overall construction costs, and that's inclusive of the fixtures, the furniture, the equipment, and then we have the actual construction costs. And so I'm going to give you both by comparison, if I may. So if we think of West Intermediate, the actual construction costs, again, $35.5 million with an overall of 46.5. So that's West Intermediate. Now let's look at a 5th grade wing, which also is inclusive of an expansion to the cafeteria, additional concrete, having to address utilities, detention, other aspects of construction. That project has an overall of approximately, let's say, 35 million. With a construction of 19.8. We believe that will come down to approximately lower than 32 perhaps. Mr. Bowles, is that pretty accurate there? But ultimately, if you look at the difference, we understand we're not rebuilding a whole school, but there are some challenges when you're squeezing something in, really though, for the benefit of a community that truly wants this. I believe this board did their due diligence, after many meetings and listening to what the parents of the community, and I won't say it's everyone at this point, but at the time, facing this decision, the decision was made to move forward. The costs are high. They will continue to go up, but this is where we are today. Mr. Bowles, would you like to add anything more to that conversation?
I think you covered that perfectly. Just to keep in mind there, yes, there's the 32 million is the overall. But that includes costs like furniture, fixtures, equipment, your other professional fees, like your architectural services, geotechnical testing, coming back in and doing permitting, things of that nature. So it's, and incorporated into that, like Dr. Z said, you're tying into an existing facility where there could be some continued unknowns until you start getting into that construction phase.
Correct, which happens with any project. I may have said 35, I actually meant 32. And so it may be less than that. We hope it is, but it may not be. We may need every bit of that. But again, it's not simply a wing, it's continual with other parts. When we build a campus, we build it for so many students. And sometimes the infrastructure, as you expand, needs some assistance. So that, of course, in this case, you can have space, not so much hallway space in this case, but definitely cafeteria space, or they will be having a very early brunch.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Z.
Thank
And so I'd asked Dr. Z the question about, the intermediate comparison. And so your answer was 46.5 million, which is 14.5 million. The 32 million is 14.5 million less.
Yes, sir.
Than if we were to build a straight-up intermediate.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you just, the 14.5, we'll put that back into
Additional expenses that we may have when it comes to bond.
for other projects?
For
Okay.
anything left over, anything that may have cost more, or something else that's come up that we need.
Okay.
And I think you'd kind of earmarked some of that also for renovations, touch-ups, that type thing of some of our more mature buildings.
Right, as we want to renovate perhaps the soft seating in our libraries, as we want to add additional furniture or something else that may be needed.
And Michael, since we're still on questions, I just wanted to confirm again that we still are, even though we have one building, we're still working towards an intermediate experience and a junior high experience.
We are. That was the rationale behind visiting two different, well, physically visiting Brazosport, which is a lot further than I remembered, and then virtually visiting another district. There are not a lot, again, out there, but I can assure you that we will do it well. 5-8, our students there will have an exceptional experience. And we will visit with the board in the future about what that plan looks like.
Okay, any other questions for the superintendent? Okay, let's move into the kind of discussion for of the board. I'd like to kind of build on the point that John just made for benefit of Jennifer, Coco, and Amanda. In order for us to pivot from what was a full intermediate build at a different site, one of the things that was important to the board was in maintaining a separate intermediate experience from the junior high experience. The format we've got in Tomball ISD, as you know, we are different than other school districts where that experience from K through 4, we separate it at the 5th and 6th grade level rather than have this blurring of 5th, 6th, 7th, and just, our community values this difference of a 5th and 6th grade format. That came out loud and clear in the surveys as well, and continuing to have it separate from the 7th and 8th format. And so while it may be one kind of mega building, I'm not even going to call it that, but a larger.
Separate entrances, they will have separate entrances.
The challenge that we put forth to the superintendent was create that intermediate experience different than the junior high experience in the same building. So just a little more context there.
Well, we also, in some of our discussions, was the extra money that we've saved by doing it this way, that we can help spruce up some of our older schools like Tomball Junior
Correct.
High and
Correct.
do some facelifts where they need a little facelift.
On that note, I think during the rezoning discussions, there was going to be a presentation that Dr. Webb was going to present that was specifically explaining the importance of having a separate intermediate experience. Can you, when I was really interested in understanding that, can you guys send that to me?
So this is-
Tomorrow?
Yeah, board, let's keep it to the board discussion. So
I'm just asking for the presentation to be
No
sent to
problem.
me because y'all ended the meeting because it was so late at night.
no problem.
Yeah.
Yes is the answer. That exists. And I'm sure we can make a request to the superintendent to do that. Not to cut you off, Jennifer. I just didn't want you to deviate from a question of Dr. Webb. Okay, any other discussion amongst the board for the board? Okay, I have a motion and it has been seconded. All those in favor of this, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, this motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item L, approve the recommendation to select Texas Arcadius, Inc. as the architect for the agricultural barn for the Tomball West High School facility with architectural fees of 6.75% of construction costs plus a reimbursables budget of $45,000 using bond 2021 funds. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. McStravick, seconded by Mr. Lewandowski. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open up to the floor for the board's discussion? Hearing no questions for the superintendent, is there any discussion amongst the board? Okay. A motion has been made, it's been seconded, so all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item M, approve the recommendation to select Texas Arcadius, Inc. as the architect for the renovations of Building Number 4 within the Tomball Innovation Center with architectural fees of 7% of construction costs plus reimbursables budget of $5,000 using Bond 2021 funds. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Bass, seconded by Mr. White. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open up the floor for discussion?
I have one, Michael. Martha, can you remind us of what the renovations, what we're going to be doing with building number 4?
Yes, they're actually very minimal, and it is really to facilitate additional bathroom space and a little bit of restructuring in that small area for our staff. That's actually not student space. It is for the employees that are working there from our maintenance department.
Thank you. I
You're
just couldn't
welcome.
remember. I knew we had talked about it. I just couldn't remember what we were.
Yep, good question.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Okay, hearing none, is there any discussion for the board, by the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion has been made and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, your motion carries unanimously. Item N, approve the recommendation to select FMG Construction LLC for the addition of sidewalks at the Early Excellence Academy and Staff Development Center for Phase 1 of this project at $120,809.88, including a $50,000 contingency budget, purchasing through Cooperative Contract Choice Partners 24/018 Mike Romeo-06, using Bond 2021 funds. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Salem, seconded by Mr. McStravick. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this before we open it up for board discussion? Martha, do we have to do this?
Yes, it is a requirement of the city of Tomball, but I said this last night, I'd like to reiterate, we are very grateful that they did work with us on allowing us to push this project back so that we could get our little ones in there at the beginning of the year. And so this is something that we pushed back, and now it's time. And so we, yes, it is a requirement of the city.
Is there any discussion by the board for the board? Okay, I have a motion and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Item O, Oscar. It's recommended that the Board of Education render a finding under Texas Administration Code Section 249.14 Golf that good cause did not exist as required by the Texas Education Code Sections 21.105 Charlie, 21.160 Charlie, or 21.210 Charlie for the following educator, Kimberly Dillow. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, a motion made by Mr. McStravick, seconded by Mrs. Krecky. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open it up for discussion? Hearing none, is there any discussion for the board by the board? I'll just add on that based upon those 4 elements that exist in the Texas Education Code, I could not find any evidence where Ms. Dillow had reason for cause to abandon her contract. So just to reiterate that we're in a very tight box in regard to what we as a board can do here. Is there any other discussion? Okay, a motion's been made, it's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. We'll now proceed with public comments on non-agenda items. And so we have one person that has signed up for public comment, and his name is Jim Ross. So, Mr. Ross, I need to read a statement, so if you could make your way and allow me to read this, I'll then turn it to you for comments. The board encourages comments about the district from members of the public. However, speakers are required to conduct themselves with proper respect and decorum in addressing the Board of Trustees and in all conduct during a meeting. Individuals who do not conduct themselves in an orderly or appropriate manner will receive a verbal warning and may be asked to leave the meeting. We ask that, Mr. Ross, you keep your comments to pertain to district business and be no longer than 3 minutes. And procedure-wise, for any member of the public who is accompanied by a translator, your time will be doubled as required by law. We will utilize an electronic timer visible on the right side of the speaker's podium. The first 1 minute will be displayed in green. An audible tone will sound when the speaker has 1 minute remaining, and the display will change to yellow. Another tone will sound when 10 seconds remain, and the display will change to red. At the end of the 3 minutes, an audible tone will sound to end the session. Remember, the board may not discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on the agenda. In addition, the board has adopted policies to provide prompt and equitable resolution of complaints and concerns for employees, students, or their parents, and the general public. Copies of our district policy and procedures on public comment and filing complaints are available on the district website. Thank you for your concern regarding our school district. And Mr. Ross, we'll hear from you now.
Thank you, President Pratt, Dr. Salazar Zamora, members of the board, cabinet, and the community. I'm here tonight with a discussion, not a discussion, but just to tell you about John P. Neubauer, superintendent of this district from 1997 to 2013. He is the one that this building is named after. And 3 of y'all approved that. He totally designed this building. His heart and soul is into this building. I watched him do it. I was in an office that was next to his for 10 years. And he and I became very close because every morning we were there early. And comes from our background in the country. But we would spend 45 minutes to an hour visiting every morning. And when he got into this building, he was not going to retire till he was in this building at least for a year. And that's exactly what he did. We moved in 2012. I want to tell you a little bit about how he was with me. To begin with, he hired me to Tomball. And I often thanked him for bringing me to Tomball. I told him early on, this is the best kept secret in Texas. When they find out, they're going to come. And they have. He and I would visit in the mornings and discuss strategic things, financial. There were a lot of things happening with school finance, and he certainly was interested in that. We'd visit for a while, then I would go off into my office and spend the day doing what I like to do, collecting data, building spreadsheets, doing the numbers, and he allowed me to do that. But if you know John Neubauer, he would come in the afternoon, okay, Mr. Soothsayer, man with a crystal ball, or whatever he would call me that day, what do you see? And I would tell him. And he'd ask me questions, and he always ended it with, well, what if? And elaborate. That went on for 10 years. His goal was to position this district for what we saw as far as growth that was coming. And I'm proud to say, John Neubauer, we did it. This district has been prepared for the growth that it saw. We studied fast growth districts. We studied everything we could find. And It was the most enjoyable time in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. There is no closed session tonight, so we will now proceed with board comments. I would just ask each board member to keep your comments high level, encouraging, congratulatory, and I'd ask you to keep them brief. And so with that, I'll open it up to board comments. And so I see Amanda has her light on, so we'll, if you don't have comments, we're good, but let's go.
Sure. I just want to say that was really nice, Mr. Ross and Garrett. We're very sorry, but your dad did leave a legacy. And even for those of us who weren't in Tomball the whole time that he was the superintendent, he left quite the legacy. So we're appreciative of him and your family, and we are sorry for your loss, but we know he did great things in Tomball, and we're grateful for that.
Mr. Newbar left an amazing legacy that he should be very, very proud of. We're, as a community, we're better for it.
Well, okay, I got a couple things. I can go fast though, right? So, you know, Garrett, I see you out here. Jim, wonderful comments. Kit's here as well. John's right-hand man. You know, this building is named after John. Mark and I had the opportunity to know John in several different capacities. He was my high school principal, and then I got to work with him as superintendent of schools. We had to keep the idea of naming this building after him secret, because if he knew that, he would have quashed it. But we were able to keep it secret, working with David Chulke, and we were able to make the motion and get the building named after him. So that was really cool. He was a visionary. We're actually building West High School and the other West campuses on land that he and Jim worked to purchase together. So he was always looking forward. One of the great things, one of my other former trustees that I worked with, Ken Odom, has a blog, and Ken blogs on leadership. And he has a blog out there regarding your father, John Newbar. And it's interesting, one of the items that he brings on there, all of them run home to me, but one of the things I think is interesting, John always said, tell me the rules and I'll figure out how to win the game. And he did that particularly with school finance. Two comments that he made, I know I'm running out of time, two comments he made that I just want to pass on that have stuck with me, and I always try to use them. I try and find a place to use them. But one is, he used to always say, that's as handy as a pocket on a shirt. I love that saying. Handy as a pocket on a shirt. It's like, you're right, John, that's really handy. And the other thing was, this was advice he gave to a new principal that he told me about after I asked how they were doing. And he told me this was his advice to her. Don't worry about piss ants in the basement when there's elephants on the roof. So,
Yeah.
your dad was a great man. I love John Newbar, and I enjoyed working with him, and great mentor. So, and I'm glad this building's named for him, and it'll live on for a long time. So that's it.
Thank you, John. Jennifer, anything?
I was just going to say, it might be nice to produce, for the district to produce like a documentary about Mr. Newbauer. Just telling the stories from people that knew him personally, just to record and preserve the history. Something short, maybe 15 minutes or less, and that might be really nice to preserve the history.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer. Kobo, anything more?
Sure. In regards to John, just to add on a little bit, John's John McStravick has taken some of the stuff away, but I will say that John was a teacher back when our 7th and 8th grade was out at Huffsmith, and I was one of his students. And I'll be honest with you, I never thought that I would be on the board with him, and I will say that during that time, he became a friend, he became a mentor, and he taught me a lot of things that have stuck with me my entire life. He was a great guy. He had to have been a good chess player because he was always thinking 3 or 4 moves ahead. And I also heard the statement that tell me what the rules are and I'll figure out how to win. And I don't know that he ever lost that I'm aware of. So he was a great guy, and I know we'll all miss him. In addition to that, changed songs a little bit. It is the holiday season. Again, I'll tell everyone Merry Christmas, have a Happy New Year, be safe, enjoy your time off, and come back refreshed.
Thank you, Mark. Good? Oh, go ahead, go. Pull it close to you. Yeah.
So, just want to thank you for those kind words. I really enjoyed listening to them, and just to know that I was a part of Mr. Neubauer's vision, because while he was doing as a superintendent, I was able to reap the benefits as a student in this district. So I'm proud to say that I reaped the benefit of such a great man. Thank you.
Beautiful.
I made some comments last night, certainly recognizing that this building is named for John, and it was hard keeping it a secret. We surprised him that night when we named, because we have a practice in Tomball ISD where we just don't name facilities for anyone. And so John, it was an exception, and I'll tell you, John was very proud to have reclaimed all of the bricks and the hardwood and the clocks and much of the things that are in the foyer. And any time he had an opportunity where there was a visitor, he would highlight these things. In his office are the bricks. In our boardroom is the black chalkboard, the hardwood floor. And so having the picture of the Cherry Street building on the wall next to the facade of this building is such a wonderful recreation. And I know that John struggled with the idea of how much we could keep the facade of this Cherry Street building versus, having to start fresh. And ultimately, we started fresh, but the inspiration is there. And so I always valued the recognition of the past, and very much appreciated where we were headed and reading the tea leaves, and your dad did that really well. And so proud that you're here. And as I mentioned to you the other night, proud that you continue to have the Neubauer name associated with Tomball through your participation in the Tomball Education Foundation and what you do, as well as the Tomball Scholarship Foundation. Probably got those mixed up, but Tomball Scholarship Foundation, so.
May I say
yeah.
something?
Go ahead, please.
Garrett, I'm glad that you're here and able to hear so many great things about your father. If you look at the wall back there, it says former superintendents, and only 11 men before your father knew what it was like to sit in this seat. He was number 12. He definitely broke the mold. He definitely has lived a legacy and left a legacy, not just in this district, but in education. Very few people know what it's like to sit in this chair. The men up there, now 13, know exactly what it's like. So although I didn't work with your father, and I don't have rich history of all the lessons we learned together and all of the things that happened, I know what it's like. I'm the only person here that can say I've shared this seat that your father shared. And I want you to know something. I don't look like any of the people on that wall at all, in any shape, form, or fashion. And I'm not sure he knew how to take me initially. But we had a beautiful conversation. I don't know if you know this, but he and I had a beautiful conversation. It was important to me to talk to him before I applied for the job because I knew it meant so much to him and I knew it would mean so much to me. And the words he shared were words of wisdom. So his legacy will live on beyond the name on this building, but in the hearts of many students whose lives he changed, because that's what superintendents do. Thank you.
Okay, we've now concluded the board comments portion. That concludes our meeting. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
I heard a lot. I'm going to go with a motion made by Mr. Lewandowski and a second by Mr. White. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. We now conclude at 6:26 p.m. Central.